Two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. You know, I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts and their stories and lessons and share with the many, ultimately changing their legacy, destiny, and the world. And if you're looking to write a book out there, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. They can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you want to put your book on autopilot to generate leads, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. The book that we're talking about today is perfect for you out there that's an entrepreneur looking to maybe nurture and revive some leads rather than kill them. The book is called Are Your Leads Killing Your Business? Post COVID, I'm going to pull this up here. Post-COVID framework proven to attract, accelerate, and activate the right clients to double your pipeline and revenues in 90 days for service as a SaaS or service as a software as a service companies, tech, and B2B service firms. Now, we are a SaaS, as one part of our agency is. So this is going to be perfect if you're out there and you want to maybe increase your revenues, but also recurring revenue. We just had a conversation about that. This is the podcast for you. So it is an honor to have the author with us, Mark Osborne. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited to have a conversation.
Well, let's start off with the genesis of this book. What made you want to write it? And if you can give us a quick little background on where you come from and maybe your pathway to where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I've been in marketing and sales for B2B products and services for more than 20 years. In fact, I actually got my start in marketing in the early days of the internet. So this is like the late 90s. Some of your audience may remember this. This might be a little too old for everybody, but back then, people didn't have access to the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in their pocket. In fact, it was more like a billboard where, like at a grocery store, you know how you see people put up a sign, it's got like tear off the phone number to get in touch with people. And it was actually called a BBS, or a billboard service, a BBS Usenet group, was sort of the common ways that people would use the internet. And I was playing in bands and managing bands right after college. And so I noticed that people would go on to these Usenet groups and they would trade bootleg concert tapes. So like I have the Dave Matthews Band in Birmingham. And there was no such thing as spam at the time. People wanted you to know how to get in touch with them. So their username was their email address. They wanted everyone to have their email address. So I started building databases of email addresses of, well, I know they like Dave Matthews and I know they live somewhere near Birmingham. And so then when one of my bands that sounded like Dave Matthews went anywhere near Birmingham, I'd email all these folks. And I was selling out concerts for little unknown, unsigned artists, which led to a job at a record label, which led to a job at a radio station, and then led to a job in marketing and sales. And the early days of the internet were all about sort of finding those little exploits, those little ways to, game algorithms or, get new data that no one had before. And I got so deep into using marketing data and technology that actually Ad Age magazine named me a marketing technology trailblazer back in 2017. They said it was one of the best 25 people in the world at using data and technology for marketing. But one of the things that I noticed is that the pace of innovation in the sort of technology and data space is moving so fast, it's really hard to keep up. The MarTech conference publishes a landscape of like all the different marketing technology and marketing data companies that are out there. And when they first started publishing that list, more than 10 years ago, it had about 150 companies on it. Today, it's more than 10,000 companies. So there's just so many sources of data and technologies that, companies that think that they're going to find that silver bullet, that growth hack that's going to, propel them to success, they just can't keep up with the pace of innovation. That's not the key. And so I noticed that a lot of companies were getting distracted by growth hacks, and they were getting distracted by this urge for, I need more leads, I need more leads, I need more leads, in order to sort of hit their targets and quotas. But I looked at the successful companies that were consistently, growing, doubling year on year. They weren't the ones that were chasing these growth hacks. They were the ones that were building systems. And this really was accelerated a lot during the pandemic, because the pandemic really accelerated the use of a lot of these sort of technology solutions and data sources. McKinsey Consulting says that in the B2B, marketing and sales space, the pandemic lockdowns accelerated some trends that were already active in the market. They accelerated them by more than 10 years in less than 10 months. So just real hockey stick spikes in the use of different, data and technology. And so companies that didn't adapt to that really got left behind. A lot of companies sort of treated the pandemic as, a pause button. Maybe they did an extra webinar or two. Maybe they wrote an extra white paper and, put it behind the gate for download or for downloading. But the other companies in their space really rapidly advanced and building these systems enabled by data and technology for doing a better job of attracting more of the right prospects, accelerating those best opportunities through the sales pipeline, and then activating their best clients for faster renewals, larger upsells, more referrals. And it's the companies that built these systems that were really finding success. And so that's what sort of prompted the book. And the title is, Are Your Leads Killing Your Business? Because this idea that more leads, more leads, more leads is the cure is wrong.
Yep.
And the reason why is 80% of your revenues come from just 20% of your customers. Everyone knows that. It's actually even worse with leads. Like, it's an even smaller percentage of your leads that'll wind up being those customers that generate 80% of your revenues. And if you don't have the systems built to attract more of those opportunities, identify them faster so that you can swarm all of your resources on to win them, you won't win them. In fact, your competitors will, and then you'll be left with the table scraps in the marketplace. Well, those table scraps are worse than no customers at all, because they never really believe in the value that you bring to the market. And so they want to whittle down on your pricing, and they're really sort of unprofitable for you. They don't really believe in your vision for the product that you're creating and delivering to market. So they want you to customize it in different ways for them, so that, they're kind of distracting you from your vision for the product by making you make custom things. And most likely they're going to churn and leave you without ever really sort of generating profit, certainly without ever serving as a referral or a testimonial for you in the marketplace. So when your client base is made up of those customers, that actually creates a death spiral that can kill your business. And so the book is all about how to create those systems that do a better job of attracting more of the right prospects, help you focus your resources on accelerating those best deals through the sales pipeline and win them, and then how to activate those clients for faster renewals, larger upsells, and more referrals.
Wow. Yeah, you just touched on a few things that I've been thinking about recently. We've been investing in SEO, and we were able to get some presence in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm at. And most of my
Okay.
clients are not in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but we got a lot of people reaching out to us, and we didn't have the filters in place to put them in the right seats with the right sales reps, right? Because what you just said hits home. If I load up a lot of people in front of my sales reps, but they are not good leads, it's going to burn their time up, their energy, their patience, and therefore they might just say they're going to cut bait and leave, right? So
Right.
I need to be very protective of who sees who at certain levels. And maybe I do that with better filters throughout the website, maybe a different scheduler that kind of dissects who's where at, or maybe I offer just different packages so there's individuals, no matter where they're at, we can help them. So bad leads, though, they will kill businesses because of what I just said. It'll hurt the team, it'll hurt the culture, hurt the profit margin, and you might, like you said, build a culture of maybe individuals, a tribe of people that you really don't even like serving, right? Because they're always trying to nickel and dime you. So there are many aspects to it, but am I saying something that is very common in pretty much any service related business?
You'd be surprised. And I actually think that it's a little bit of a pendulum swing, in that, you know, some companies are just sort of desperate for, I need more leads in order to close more sales, in order to get the revenues that I want. And so that obsession with volume really distracts them from quality.
Yeah.
And so as a result, like, they haven't realized yet what you already have, which is, rather than focusing on more, they need to focus on better. And the other thing is that, you hit on a really good point of it's all about, how do you do a better job of, either identifying those best opportunities so that you can put your best salesperson on it. And then those not as good opportunities, how do you leverage data and technology to have sort of a one-to-many approach? Like, okay, here's some more information you can read. When you're ready to order, here's the order form. You don't need to have your salespeople talk to those folks because that just sort of burns them out. And if you wind up not closing them, that's okay because they wouldn't be a great customer for you anyway. And the key sort of system for that is building an ideal customer profile. And the way that you do that is you really just rank all the companies that you've done any business with in the last year or two. Look at the top 20% of companies that make up that 80% of revenues. How are they similar to each other? How are they different from the rest of your customers? Not only through the lens of things like firmographics, like, oh, they're of a certain size, or they're based in a certain location, or they're in a certain business model or industry, but also like, what was the context that sent them to market? What was the real thing that they were trying to get out of your solution? And by understanding those things in that context, you can really very quickly identify, oh, this is a high quality opportunity. I need to, sort of dogpile all my resources on it to make sure I win, because otherwise my competitors will. And if I lose this, then that can make or break a year for me.
Hmm. Now, in chapter 2 of your book, you have a great phrase here. You have to till the right soil. You have to go. I realized that I was tilling the right soil when I was joining certain masterminds that are pretty expensive because
Sure.
now I was working with people that money wasn't the object, and I knew it, and they knew it, right? So, what was the object that was standing in their way? Most likely clarity, or maybe an understanding of how a book can be used in the right fashion, or maybe it was just meeting the right person. And so when I was in those rooms, I was able to satisfy a lot of the problems that they're facing. So I was tilling the right soil. This takes a little bit of time, though. This isn't right away. So, what do you mean by this chapter? And I think it does come down to maybe finding your strategic advantage, is what you say here, competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all about sort of building the processes and really understanding how you're different from the competitive landscape. And there's a note that you don't pick a niche, you create a niche.
Oh, I love that.
You carve it out of the mountain. When you don't just find a path and walk up the mountain, because if there was a path up the mountain, everyone would take it. But you create that path, you carve it out by really understanding what is it that your customers want? What's the real benefit that they want? And how are the competitors in the landscape sort of failing them on that? And in a B2B environment, it's not just for today, because B2B decision making is really long and laborious, especially for sort of large contracts that might last a year or more. They can't afford to go through that process every year and to evaluate new vendors. So they want to pick a vendor they can be with for 5 years. They want to pick a partner. And so by understanding what your customers really care about and want, and then how your competition is sort of failing them, and how the way you deliver is unique and provides a unique benefit to a certain subset of the marketplace, that's how you really carve this niche out of the mountain, and that's your path to growth. But having real clarity on that allows you to see an opportunity come in and go, you know what? They're not going to get it. They're not going to know why we're doing what we do, and so they're not going to be a good fit for us. We shouldn't work with them, and it makes it a lot easier. And I can give you sort of a prime example for me. Our solution is all about creating systems, and systems require a little bit of strategic thinking of, well, what is it you're really trying to do? Or then what's your system for doing it today? And how do we make that system better? A lot of business owners are really out there looking for magic bullets. They're looking for, what's the one thing that I need? What's my growth hack that's going to, double my business? Those aren't good customers for us. And so when we hear people sort of talk about that, we're like, we might not be the best fit for you. There might be someone else out there who would be willing to sort of sling the latest thing that they've read about or heard about that they think is going to do do the magic for you, and maybe you'll be happier with that. Unfortunately, what we see though is that companies will chase this growth hack and then this one and then this one and this one takes 3 months to try them all out. At the end of trying out four things, it's a year later and nothing's happened. Whereas if they built a system and then started progressing on that, they'd be in a lot different place.
Hmm. And so when you meet with people, the biggest mistake, though, like you said, is shiny object syndrome, trying to do too much at once, right? And I do believe this is a slow, I think it's a slow process, but once you get it dialed in, every next level becomes a strong foundation. You're not building it on sand. So is this a slow process? In my opinion, it is, because you're kind of like giving it enough time to figure out what's working, if it's landing, if you're bringing in new people, the right people. So that's the way I look at it. I may be wrong. What do you think?
Well, so, fundamentally marketing and sales, you are making bets. And so like you're making a bet and then seeing, how well it pays off. You have to put some of that infrastructure in place. But we have done something that really helps sort of mitigate some of that risk. And so what it is we built a free diagnostic tool. So if your listeners go to modernrevenuestrategies.com/diagnostic, there's a free diagnostic tool there that in kind of 15 to 20 questions. And now it depends on the way you answer them as to what, how many questions you get and what they are. We can diagnose your fastest path to growth. Now, these aren't the easiest questions on earth. And the reason why is they get deep into how well do you know your competitive landscape and how you're different from them? What does your average order value look like? How long does it take you to close a sale? How many, what are your different sources of leads, and what's your cost to acquire a customer through those different sources? But we have distilled down sort of the most important aspects of diagnosing the path to growth for business. Is it around attracting more of the right prospects? Is it around accelerating your best opportunities through the pipeline? Or is it around activating your existing clients for fast renewals, larger upsells, and more referrals? Just having that focus creates a lot of clarity for businesses. And so we'll do that diagnostic session for free that then starts to say, well, hey, compared to these benchmarks that we've built over 20 years and tons of research, here's where you're the furthest behind your competitive set. That's your biggest opportunity for growth. And there are some tried and true systems that work in that situation. And just having that clarity can really accelerate you through that system process. It's not a silver bullet, though. There's not a secret trick that, well, if only you start posting with this hashtag, you're suddenly gonna propel yourself to millions. It doesn't work that way. You still have to base it in solid marketing principles, and that starts with understanding your customer and your product and the competitive landscape. But once you do those things, you can really ensure that success with this kind of diagnostic program.
And so if I went through this, and I really do want to go through it, because these simple questions that you're going to ask might be eye-opening that you don't know it. And maybe it has to do with the sales cycle. How long does it take for you to close a deal? Are you counting that lead for whenever they picked up your book and you are able to capture their email and phone number, or after they scheduled a call with you and then you gave them the price for everything? So I mean, getting the numbers dialed in, huge. Here's why I would think, and I need to do a better job at this, but when you isolate each problem and fix it, you're able to see either a trajectory up or down, right? It's almost like, did it do anything? Did it go up? Did it go down? And then once you see maybe an adjustment, you move on to the next one. And so you need to know your numbers in the beginning. Therefore, you're able to see some results. And then isolating each situation, whether it's the sales cycle or potentially the email sequence or potentially the follow up, right? Like all of these little things take a little bit of time, but you need to know where you're at now, and therefore you'll be able to see the pathway, whether it's going in the right direction into the storms, more storms, or into the sunshine, right? So that's huge.
Yeah, you're totally right, Mike. And there's two things that you called out there that are really powerful. And the first is, you talk about, you need to be better at it. We all always need to be better at it. So it's one of those things that it's never done, but it also doesn't have to be overly cumbersome. Sometimes people hear, talking about systems and they're like, I'm not going to detail exactly what everyone needs to do every minute of every day in order to run the business. We got a business to run here. And that's true. But what we have found, and in fact, so Harvard Business Review says, companies with a marketing plan have 4x the success of those that don't. Literally, just writing it down makes a world of difference. And the same thing is true for these systems. You've got a system in your head of how that flow looks like from an initial, target to a prospect, to a lead, to a sales opportunity. Just writing it down does a world of difference in helping the team collaborate on how do we make each of these steps better. And we use like an optimization worksheet where everyone can come together and see it. The other thing that's true, Mike, is that about 40% of the population is primarily visual, meaning that the way they interpret the world is through things that they see. Another 80% is, auditory. They'll talk things out or they'll read it and write it out. And then about 20% is more kinesthetic. But if you think about 40% of your team is primarily visual, if you don't have a visual representation of what your marketing and sales process looks like that everyone can see and collaborate on, you're really wasting an opportunity to get the best out of your people and even the best out of yourself. There's a lot of research that shows that sort of visual thinking and stimulating those other pathways creates a lot more creativity and a lot more path to success.
So just to get those numbers right, it's 40% visual, 40% auditory, 20% kinesthetics.
Kinesthetic, yeah. And kinesthetic, it's sort of a weirder thing to do because it's less familiar for people, but they kind of navigate life through kind of the way they feel about the way things are going, or sort of the sensation in their body on, I feel like this is going in the right direction, or this reminds me of a feeling when things were going right. Whereas auditory people tend to sort of have an inner monologue where they're talking to themselves, or they're remembering the words of conversations, or they're reading and writing in order to navigate. Whereas visual people tend to sort of see images of experiences that they've had, or see images of things that they want to sort of aspire to in sort of a future state. And they, interpret the world through sort of the images of things, sometimes even the images of words, not the sort of sensation of hearing those words.
Wow. Man, that is awesome. Yeah, I think that I need to do a better job because we talk it out on our sales calls or our team meetings. And if we could have more of a visual diagram, I think we'll be able to figure out these processes and have more of a group buy-in for them to maybe give better input, or maybe have a clearer picture of how they could make the process a little bit more efficient. So that's huge. One question I do want to ask you is, I have a group of customers that I'm thinking of that are like I, they're great customers, right? And anytime that they refer someone to us, I already know it's weird how this happens, but they're very similar, right? When it comes to income level, mindset, core values. People refer other people that are very much like them, I've realized. So, individuals out there listening to this podcast or watching it, how can they get that perfect clientele dissected? Is it, do you help out with that? Do you basically say, well, is it based off of how well you work with them, or income levels, or attention span? Like, how do you break it down? So therefore, and then how do you duplicate that? Are there certain tricks that you recommend for them to maybe affiliate programs so they can refer more people, or make them a shining example on your website, promote the hell out of them, send them gifts? Anything that you can do to duplicate that perfect clientele.
Sure. So there's a phrase, if you don't know where you're going, you'll never know when you get there. And the same thing is true by, sort of defining what's that ideal customer look like. And we really work with clients to come up with that ideal customer profile that really crisply defines, as a company, what is that kind of company? And this is, primarily in a B2B environment where there's multiple decision makers on a complex buying committee. But if you understand the company and the context that that company is operating in, oftentimes that gives you a sense of who's going to be the right fit. And then we take that a step further and we look at who are the people that are the decision makers within that company. And so oftentimes in a B2B environment, there's multiple stakeholders that are part of, a buying team or a buying committee. So there might be the ultimate decision maker who signs the check. There might be a champion who is going to go out and evaluate a few options and then recommend one to that decision maker. And you've got to kind of win that person over. There might be technical influencers who are going to look at the technology that is underpins your solution. But by really defining each of those roles and what their personal wins are, as well as their professional wins. So like, what's the psychological and emotional benefit that they're going to get from engaging and contracting with you? What's the business win that they're going to get? And in B2B, oftentimes we forget that it's people on the other end who are making decisions. And people are fundamentally emotional creatures who make decisions based on emotion and then justify it with logic. But when we try to sell B2B solutions, oftentimes it's just logic, logic, logic.
Yes.
Whereas if we understand the sort of, what do they personally get out of this solution, there's a real, sort of magic there in knowing that. And so by defining those things and then looking at your best customers and seeing how they match on,
Oh,
well, what was the
yes.
personal win that customer was getting? You'll actually find your best customers look a lot alike each other. Because there's something about you that is attractive to those people. You might not know it yet, though. There's something you can't put your finger on. By starting to distill it and put it down and writing it and really create this, framework. And, we even use images of, what does your best customer look like? Like, what's an actual picture of one? Let's give them a name. Let's really create that persona, that avatar. You start to do a much better job of recognizing them when you run across them in the wild. And so once you know that, then you start to say, well, where do they hang out? And you start to understand what their customer journey looks like. Not only like what are the informational needs they have at each stage of, well, should I solve this problem at all? How should I solve it? Well, who should I look for that solves it that way? How do I compare them against each other? But also like, where do they go to look for that information? Is it other peers? Is it networking groups? Is it magazines or newspapers? Or, where do they go for that information? By really understanding that person, you'll uncover all the ways to reach them in really unique ways that's a lot less expensive than just buying ads, because everybody buys ads. But if you know your customer well, you can find really unique and powerful ways to reach them that are a lot less expensive, but also a lot more impactful than just buying ads, because you can stand out from your competition. And that leads to, wow, like there's a potential partnership with, they all participate in this golf tournament. I should sponsor that golf tournament. And it leads you to sort of these really sort of unique pairs and unique partnerships that can be very powerful in the B2B space.
Man, great advice. And I don't know if you were touching on it, but how do you incentivize them to bring people to the tribe, to the culture of the company, or to bring people in, right? How could you incentivize referrals? Is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. So incentivizing referrals, testimonials are good things to do. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to look at what does it cost you to acquire a customer? But let's say it's, $200 is what you spend in your advertising and marketing and, all the nurturing programs that you do to bring in a customer. But if someone could make a referral and you close that customer right away, well, you've got $200 to use as an incentive back to that customer. Can you give them a discount on their renewal? Can you give them a discount on last month's invoice? Can you make a charitable donation in their name? Can you send them a gift card to their favorite steakhouse? Like all of these things to think about as you think about it. But the most important thing, though, is not having some incentive. That's not really the magic. The magic is just in asking. And it's like voting. You want to, ask early and often about like, do you know anyone that this would, make sense for? Would you feel comfortable providing a testimonial on our website? Like just asking those questions at key points in the relationship when their enthusiasm is peaking, or when it's part of a renewal conversation where you can then use that referral as a way to incent them for doing it. The other thing too is how you frame it. You have to make sure that they understand that you growing is a benefit to them because you get more customers. It's not like you're going to spend less time on them. You're going to grow your business, and it's going to enable you to hire more people that you can train well to do more things for them. Whereas some businesses are bashful about asking for referrals because, oh, well, they're just going to see it as, more people to distract me from their account. That's not true. If you frame it the way of, look, if we don't grow, we'll die. And if we die, you'll lose someone that does good work for you. Instead, it's, hey, if we grow, we can do more things for you. We can make your life even better. We can add more value to our equation.
Man, that's great. Yeah, reframe it. Man, you've been in the music business and you have the coolest microphone that I've seen in a very long time. So, is there any one thing? I'm sure there are many, but is there any one thing that stands out that the music business really taught you?
Um, Sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot, as you say, that I think the thing that I found really interesting about it was um, it's a real, sort of hot crucible for testing brand strategy because each band is a brand, and then each album is a sort of a sub brand as part of that house of brands.
Hmm.
And each tour is sort of a sub brand of that. And each sort of individual concert experience is, a way of delivering that brand to the marketplace. And so it was really interesting, before I knew the term brand, I was crafting sort of a consistent position for brands that I was for bands that I was working with as I was trying to brand them and trying to think, well, who's this going to who do we see in the audience that's really getting into it? Okay, so that's our customer. And what is it that they like about it? Well, that's our unique differentiation. And why are they choosing to be with us instead of, go out and see another band tonight? There's a million other things they could do. Well, that's, really sort of our competitive positioning. Now, how do we say that with an image? How do we say that with the subject matter that we do, with the places that we play? And that's one of the things that in business people forget so often is your brand isn't your logo or your slogan or anything. It's really everything about the promise you make to your customers. And I really learned that lesson well in marketing bands because the brand is the band, which are the people. And so it's actually the sort of the personification of who they are is what makes that brand. And that's really true in business too.
Wow, it's a great way to look at it too. Like you said, a band comes out, they make a splash, and then they put out an album, and each album is a little bit different. And then the tours don't really match up with maybe the album. It might, but most likely it's kind of a hybrid, right? So
Right.
there's still a message being sent within that. And I think one of the greatest storytellers out there right now is a band called Ghost. Have you ever heard of Ghost?
I haven't. I'll have to check
Okay.
them out.
And it's wild. I was able to see their transformation. And they started off in this very grungy, basement feel, and they've just exploded. But their storytelling hasn't really died down. They're always telling a story. And every album and every tour, there is like a new message being sent. And they let it be known that this lead singer, and once you look into this guy, is transforming. He went from a pope into a priest into a cardinal, and there's a transformation of the lead singer. It's pretty
Interesting.
awesome. So,
Interesting.
I would love to kind of like, ask you about the music business for hours, but is there one or two bands that stand out that you worked with that just were phenomenal, or maybe they're your good friends?
I was very lucky in that because I was good at marketing, I got to sort of work in marketing with some really good bands. And you've probably heard of John Mayer, and he and I shared a stage a few times growing up. And actually, his first independent CD, he signed it. It's been fun coming up in the business with you to me, which is that's something I'm very proud of. And some of the guys in the Zach Brown band I got to know and play with. So certainly, they were always so much better than me, but I sort of had the opportunity to be in the same rooms with them because I was pretty good at kind of marketing bands and getting myself out there. So that was a real benefit of having that skill set.
So your heart and love was in music, and then you just found your specialty, unique quality value add was in the marketing and the advertising aspect.
I often wonder that. Like, I sometimes think that the reason I got into music was because it was a product I could create on my own, and then I'd have something to market. And I could sort of control the brand myself, and control the product myself, versus having to go into business with other people where there's a lot more compromise, and you have to actually make something. I was lucky. I was a pretty good wordsmith growing up, and I had an ear for music, and so I could sit down and write some songs, and then I had a product. Now I could go out and market it and tour it. And I think I enjoyed the marketing aspect as much as I did the music.
Nice. Yes. I guess since you're friends with all these people, it's tough to pick a favorite, but what's on your playlist right now? What are you listening to?
So I live here in Southern California, and the Beach Life Festival is a great 3-day event that they do here in Redondo Beach, which is where I live. And so they bring in a bunch of acts. Typically, though, they tend to be sort of, for my age, the aging Gen Xer. And so this year they're going to have Sting on the first night, and I'm looking forward to hearing him. Atlas Genius is going to be playing on Sunday, but with ZZ Top. And so I'm sort of equally excited about seeing both of those. But given sort of where I sit on a sort of age spectrum, I have a pretty eclectic and diverse taste in music.
Nice. You're dropping some good names there, at least, man. So your website, and I just want to make sure I get this right. I think it's modernrevenuestrategies.com/diagnostics. Is that right?
Diagnostic single.
Diagnostic. Guys, go to that. I'm going to check that out myself. And so you can figure out where you can maybe remedy some problems in your business. Therefore, you can find out if you are actually attracting the wrong leads or maybe to manage some way of bringing in the right people. So awesome, dude. Social media wise, I think you're easy to find on LinkedIn, but is there another social media platform that you recommend that people can get in touch with you on?
Yeah, I really focus on LinkedIn, and then also YouTube. I do a fair number of videos and conversations with folks on YouTube, and Modern Revenue Strategies is the channel that should be pretty easy to find there on YouTube. And on LinkedIn, I'm Remarkable Mark. So pretty easy to find there as well.
Nice. I love the cover of your book. I always talk about 2 to 3 dominant colors. It gives me a vibe of Social Distortion. I bet you know that band very well. Yeah. Is that a social distortion feeling? I don't know if you know that band or if you like it, but I love that band. And they're
I
from
know the
Southern
band.
California.
Well, and being a Gen Xer, the sort of tear aesthetic was big in my youth, and definitely I wanted to convey an idea of disrupting the current mindset, which is just chasing growth hacks, more and more leads, chasing growth hacks, more and more leads. And I really wanted to have the idea of ripping back the curtain and showing that it's not that's killing your business. The key is building these systems that can help you sort of grow.
Nice. If they go to that website, Modern Revenue Strategies, what would they find there? Would they be able to contact you to work with you directly?
Yeah, absolutely. And a little more about, sort of our approach and the way that we go about things. And really it's the idea that it's not about chasing these growth hacks. It's because typically they never pay off. It's not about spending more money on ads that aren't going to work, because if you don't have a system in place, no amount of ads, even in the right places, are going to do it well. And the real key is just not going crazy. By building systems, you get a lot of freedom. We have a phrase around here. We say B2B growth systems set you free. And the reason is it sets you free from, worry about, well, what's going to happen? Marketing and sales is making a bet. So if you can have a system, you have a much higher likelihood of that bet paying off. It could set you free from sort of the conflict that arises between, marketing saying, well, I generated a bunch of leads, and sales saying, no, they're all terrible leads. They didn't work together. When you have a system that both teams can share, you can really collaborate together, and it creates a lot more harmony on the team as you're sort of working together to improve a system rather than pointing your finger at each other and playing that blame game. And the other thing is, for founders and entrepreneurs that are trying to get to that next level of growth, it sets you free just from having to manage it all. Whereas we can come in and help build those systems, bring in some outside expertise that they may not have, that allows them to then, really get to that next stage of growth.
You know, years ago, I used to get so hurt. Actually, wasn't years ago, not too long ago. I used to get really hurt when people would unsubscribe from my emails or unsubscribe from my text messages. And now I look at it as, oh, these people are deselecting me out of their life. And that's a blessing because that means they're not part of my tribe. So I'm landing only with the people who, resonate with my message. So I look at it as a blessing. Maybe I don't want many of them, but when I see that happen, I'm like, all right, these people don't belong in this group anymore. Now we're only serving the right people. So send the text message and emails, and you only want them to hit the people that your message actually connects with. So that's the way I look at it. But guys, are your leads killing your business? Proven post-pandemic fire framework for SaaS tech and B2B services firms to attract, accelerate, and activate the right clients, doubling pipeline and revenues in 90 days. Mark Osborne, thank you so much for being here, man. I really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Mike. I really enjoyed it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, we can talk music pretty much for all day. As long as I don't know if you were at Diddy's house. I'm not sure if we don't want to talk about that if you were
No,
at
no,
Diddy.
wasn't there. Wasn't there.
Okay, all right, good. All right, you probably have heard through the grapevine a lot of nonsense out there is going on. So yeah,
Sure.
he wasn't there, guys. So we can trust him. So anyways, Mark Osborne, thanks so much, guys. Pick up his book today. I'm gonna check out his website, and that's easy to find: marketingrevenuestrategies.com/diagnostic. And remember, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.